Good afternoon from the UK. Can you all hear me? Perfect. I think we're all good. Let's move this down here. So good afternoon. So good to be here after a very long time. And there's a really, really important topic that I'll be discussing today. And that is how to support children's well-being in an early years setting. It's something that we have been talking about over years and months and decades, in fact, and deciding on how we need to support as early years practitioners, how we need to support children in an early years setting. And today, that's what I aim to discuss. If you have any comments or any suggestions or anything else you'd like to know, please pop it in the chat and I will hopefully get onto it as soon as I can. I firstly like to thank ECDF for inviting me again onto this forum. It's always amazing to share wonderful information and information that you guys can take back and use in your practices. So let's get started. By the end of the session, there's a couple of things that I'd like you all to go away with. Today we'll be discussing what we mean by the term well-being. Why do we think it's important for children? How can we as practitioners support these children with their well-being? And I want you also to understand attachments, the importance of attachments and secure relationships in the early years. So there's a number of theories that we'll be speaking about today. And obviously I'll be looking at in brief because we have a time limit for the session today, but please, if you do note the theories, do go ahead and Google them and get as much information as you can, because this will support you in your practice. I want you also to understand any signs which might indicate that we need to kind of work a little bit harder on particular children. So some children may just need regular support with their well-being, as you would always do. But there are certain children that you'll spot in your room that might need that extra little bit more. What can we do to support them? What signs to look out for? And then if those signs are quite obvious and they're quite often, what is our role? What is our duty of care as educators? What do we need to do next? So those are the kind of things I will be speaking about today. If there's anything else you'd like to know, please do let me know as well. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you all, I'm going to ask you for a second just to go back over this last week and step back into your rooms. I want you to imagine yourself in the room and you're looking at all the children that are under your care. When we look at those children, there's certain interactions that are taking place, certain conversations that took place, certain behaviors that were quite different to what we're used to seeing. So I want you to keep those in mind during the session today. Well-being. What do we mean by the word well-being? In the simplest form, well-being can be described as a state of being healthy, comfortable, and happy. That's what we understand by the term well-being. So when you look at all your children individually, do you see them as being healthy? Do they feel comfortable in their surroundings? And are they happy when they're at the nursery? That doesn't go to say that they have to be this way all the time. They don't always have to feel comfortable. It's okay to have anxious moments, and it's okay to be a little bit upset and to express those emotions. It's okay to be overwhelmed at times, because those are all emotions that we want to teach children to deal with. So as adults, when we're upset, we compose ourselves. Now our duty is to support those children as educators, to support those children in taking those emotions and dealing with them in a way that they can manage them and come to terms with the fact that it's okay to have a cry. It's okay to feel uncomfortable, because that all supports emotional well-being. That supports a state of mind within that child to be able to deal with those overwhelming emotions. So in fact, being happy in your surroundings, being healthy and being comfortable means being able to deal with those adverse feelings as well. So that's what we understand by well-being. So children's well-being, without a doubt, is at the center of early years education. When you're in a nursery and you're working in a school or you're working with children, our main aim is to keep those children well and healthy. For children to thrive, they need to feel safe, relaxed, and happy in their surroundings. And that's what we need to be able to do. We need to create an environment where they can express themselves openly, they can play freely, they can explore, they can add on to their learning, they can express what they'd like to do, what they don't feel comfortable doing. Those conversations is what we are aiming for. We want children to feel that they're in a safe, secure environment and that their voices will be heard. Why is it so important? Why do we want a child to feel like their voice is being heard? Why do we want children to feel like they are able to express emotions? That's the next thing I'd like to talk about. As practitioners, we're consistently supporting children's well-being through our practices every day, through the warm welcome in the morning and the safe goodbye at the end of the day. And then again, the warm welcome in the morning for them to feel happy, secure in their environments, for them to feel like they can walk in and enjoy the rest of their day. And for them to feel like they are cared for on a daily basis, for them to feel happy, safe, and secure in the environment that we're providing. Now, our days are fulfilled with laughter and with joy and with a little fall here and there, a little cry. That's what we're there for. We're supposed to be there as secure adults to support their attachments, to support their trust in us, to support the fact that they need to understand that they can have meaningful relationships and attachments, and we're there to support them through that. So that's why we're here. That's our role. When we come in the morning, we watch over and we see a child sitting in the corner, not really wanting to interact with the rest of the children. What do? We don't stand back and let that be. We do not have conversations. You know, the child really didn't want to do that the whole day today, or the child's been crying all day. In fact, what we'll do is we'll go up to those children and we'll ask them if they're okay. Is there anything I can support you with? Is there anything you'd like to do? Are we able to step into their zone and understand what they actually want from us and where they actually want to be? Once they've had that trust in us, that's when they'll be able to open up and say, you know, this is what's upsetting me. And then it's up to us as practitioners to create an environment where they're able to step out of that difficult place and step into a place where they go and interact with the rest of the children, or maybe just play alongside the other children. So we need to be consistently watching over those children and understanding their emotions and understanding their interactions, and understanding exactly where they're coming from. That's our role as a practitioner every day, from the minute they come into the room to the second they say goodbye at the end of the day. When we've done that throughout the day, when they come back the next day, they've created an attachment. They created trust with us. They know that we're going to look after their emotional well-being. And that's our role as a practitioner. So when you step back, and I've asked you to look back into your rooms, how interactions were taking place last week, what were the children that might have needed that extra little bit from us? Or did you actually step in and support that child? Ask yourself that question. Did you make that day a better day for that child? That's where we need to be. So that's what I want you to do. Every time I'm going through a slide and giving you information, just step back into that room and take a look around that room, and at those children that you looked after for the whole week last week, were you that practitioner that they needed to support their emotional well-being? On to the next slide. Okay. So we want to prepare children for their adulthood. We want to be able to support them in feeling safe and secure during their childhood, because we want them to be emotionally intelligent in adult life. And what we do in the room with those children creates a very strong foundation, a very strong base for them to grow up to be emotionally intelligent adults. Emotionally intelligent in their interactions, in their relationships, at work, going shopping, doing those things that they should be able to do without finding it difficult. That's what we need to create. So we, as early years educators, are actually creating a base, a secure foundation for those children to be able to be prepared for the wider world and for their future. So we play a very, very important role in supporting those children with their emotional well-being throughout their early years, up until their childhood, when they're teenagers, and then as they turn into young adults, and for the rest of their adult life. Now, there's one slide that I'm going to bring up next that I always try to use in my webinars, because I think it's very important for us to reflect on brain development. So this is a couple of images I'd like you to focus on during the next couple of moments. So as you can see, we always use the term a child's mind or brain is like a sponge, and anything we present that child with, any conversations we have, or any surroundings, or any kind of interactions that take place early on in life, will then shape that child into who they'll become as adults. A child's brain starts developing when it's in the mother's womb. So anything that the child exposed to will have an effect on the child, while even before they've even been born. Once they are born, up until they turn 5 years old, their brain has already developed 90%. You've already created the main foundation for a child when they turn into an adult. So as they turn into their adult life, you've already, us as early years practitioners, have the most, I'll say, the most important job. We are actually molding those children into the adults that they're going to be. So for the first 5 years of their life, their brain develops 90%. So that's a huge amount. The rest of 10% is when the information that they've been presented with consolidates into their personality. So if you look at the image where it says newborn, 1 month, 9 months, 2 years, and then to an adult, those are neurons and dendrites. As the child is presented with information or stimuli or emotions around them, and as they grow up, they're creating neurons are active in their brain, they're creating connections, and those dendrites become more and more secure and more stronger. And as more information has been presented to them, you can see the thickness in the connections. If you look at the images, by the time the child is 9 months, you'll see lots of dark patches. That's where the child's personality is already being developed. Their emotional well-being is dependent on the interactions and the support or the attachments that they've had through their early years. When the child is at 2, there's lots going on in their brain. They're actually trying to divide up that information, and then those are the elements that will create their personalities. When they get into adulthood, you can see that now you can see some kind of pattern going on. That's because during the years between 2 years, 5 years and above, they've actually started to channel their personalities into fixed characteristics. So what we do in the first 5 years of their life will definitely mold them into the adults of tomorrow. So it's really important for us to do the right thing when it comes to supporting children's emotional, social, and physical well-being within the earlier setting. Now, the image of the brain in Romania, a very long time ago, there was a study done on children who were in an orphanage, never cuddled, never spoken to, neglected, not given the support that they require. And that's the size of that child's brain at 3 years old. And at a normal child who's created the right kind of surrounding, the right support, the right information, and maybe the right nursery with the right kind of practitioners, that's the size of the brain. So you can see the difference straight away. It's very, very reduced inside. It's shriveled. It's not nourished. It's not a nourished brain. Whereas the normal brain looks bigger, it looks smoother, the inconsistencies are not there. So it's important for us to create, I know this is an extreme comparison, but if you have a child who is exposed to adverse surroundings, maybe at home, maybe because of their economy, because of their maybe their family life at home, the brain is not going to develop as it should develop in a normal child. So you will see maybe not as extreme neglect as you can see in the image, but at least in between that, there will be some discrepancies. There will be things that they're not being able to grasp onto, to absorb, and that will then shape them into the people for tomorrow, the adults of tomorrow. So brain development is very important when you look at all aspects of early years. So it's important for us to keep that in mind when we're having those communications, those conversations, and keeping in mind exactly these images when we're actually having those interactions with the children. The importance of attachments and secure relationships, it's really important for us to look at this. This is when I'm going to be speaking about the theorists. We understand that secure attachments and trusting relationships in early childhood will create a strong base for children to become adults who are able to manage relationships positively while they are growing up. So how do we support them with those trusting attachments and relationships? How can we, as early as practitioners, support them through that journey to be able to have those secure attachments and relationships, to be able to grow up into the adults with a positive mindset, with a positive outlook to their relationships in adulthood? Well, what we need to do is we actually do need to look at theorists, the information that's been provided to us. I do have information from two of the theorists, which I'll be sharing with you. One is a very famous theorist called Bowlby. Now, Bowlby has said that attachment is a deep and enduring emotional bond that connects one person to another across time and space. And those attachments between children and their caregivers or the adults around them enable them to feel comfortable, happy, and confident. So exactly what we've just been talking about earlier. He believes that children are born with an innate need to form those attachments, and those attachments help children survive in their social surrounding, in the world that they're living in. Children with strong attachments with others are more adventurous, they're eager to have new experiences, they'll take risks, they know that they're being supported and they've got supportive adults around them. And those are vital elements for learning and development within an early years setting and the surroundings that they're in at home. When attachment figures are available and reliable, children develop a sense of trust in the world. I think you commonly will come across the phrase that I don't really trust people around me. They feel uncomfortable, they feel insecure in making relationships and developing attachments in adulthood. And usually that's because they've had a very unstable childhood. They haven't been able to develop those relationships and those attachments, which means they're apprehensive when it comes to adulthood. They're not trusting those people because they've not ever had trusted relationships throughout their life. And as we're going back to the brain development images that I showed you, if children were not taught how to have those attachments and they were not given the opportunity to have secure relationships with people, usually those are the adults who find it difficult through adult life to connect with people. The relationships are difficult to manage because they haven't created the connections when they were younger, and they're not able to manage those relationships in adulthood. So it's up to us as early years practitioners to provide a surrounding, to provide a base for them to understand that those relationships are really, really important. So that's what Bowlby said. Now we have another researcher, Susan Isaac. Isaac was a total supporter of nursery, and she said that it's an essential part of life. What she said was that she believes that the most effective way to encourage a child to be positive and successful is to place them in situations where they are able to develop their personal growth, and in situations where their independence will be encouraged. Children should be encouraged to learn through their own play, their explorations and curiosities, and that is a concept we follow as early years educators. So when you go back into your classrooms next week, have a look around, look at the surroundings, reflect on your interactions, reflect on your team's interactions with the children. Are you being able to support children successfully and positively in the surroundings that you're providing them with? Are your conversations encouraging independence, encouraging personal growth? Are you providing areas and environments for children that will support their play, their curiosities, their explorations? These are all questions that we need to consistently ask each other throughout our day, in our rooms and in the environments that we're providing for children. Are we supporting their growth? Are we supporting them with a concrete base to build their confidence on? And that's something I do want you to reflect on when you go back into your classrooms next week. As adults, we can support children through play, but the key is not to interfere or take over those learning opportunities, but in fact to facilitate them, to play alongside them, to play with them, to let them take the lead and encourage them in their play. Play usually is a time when children let out their emotions, their inner thoughts. They'll have conversations with you. Earlier on this week, I did have a conversation with the parents at the nursery that I'm working at, and she said, look, I never get my child to speak to me. They won't interact with me. And I said, you know what, just play alongside them. Take something that they're interested in, watch from afar, and just come and play alongside them. After some time, when they feel that they're comfortable with you being around them and you're not interfering and you're not overtaking or making it overwhelming for them, they'll slowly end up in a conversation with you. And that usually does happen. And that's when you'll get all those emotions being spoken about. You'll get those interactions. You'll get them to kind of open up because we're giving them the opportunity to be who they are. As early years educators, if you want to develop well-being in the settings that we're working in, it's important to reflect on the information I've just passed on. We need to create strong bonds that then will develop into stable attachments. We want children to understand that they can trust the adults around them. We want children to understand that they can be a part of the system and they can trust us. And we'll do it through different interactions. We'll do it through listening to them, understanding them, following their interest, having conversations, coming to their level, and eye contact, and two-way conversations. I think that's a strong way to develop those attachments. Another way to develop an attachment with the children that are in your care is by parent partnership. Now, what I've always said for years and years is if a child sees you interacting with their parent in a happy, kind way, and you're modeling good conversations, you're smiling, you're then creating a sense of trust within that child. That child will then trust you as an individual because, well, if my mom's okay with them, then it can't be that bad. So, and then slowly as those conversations keep taking place, pick up and drop off, the child will then feel happy enough to come into the room and trust you with the rest of their day. So we call that social referencing. And of course, parent partnerships is a huge way to encourage well-being within a child in the setting that they're in, involving parents in different events, inviting them over for play dates. These are all ways that we actually connect with the parents, and with those processes, we actually create a sense of trust within the child. The child then starts trusting us. They understand that we have their best interest at heart and that we're interacting well with their parent, and they will then start trusting us and those attachments will be formed. Now, in the UK, we have a system called a key worker system. I'm not sure what things are like in your side of the world. I knew when I was working in Dubai, we did not have a key worker system, but the team would work as a close-knit team, and the teamwork would be all of them working together with a child. But in the UK, we do have a key worker system. So when the child transits into your room, you will be your room, you will be then introduced to the parent as their key worker. The interaction starts before the child starts their days in the nursery. You get to know the child gets to know you, you get to know the parent, you form a relationship. That and the interactions are back and forth throughout the child's time within the room, and that then creates the same thing: social referencing, partnership with parents, a sense of trust with the parent. On the other side, you are their key worker, so you're working very closely with those children, and you're creating a system where they are trusting you. Those attachments have been formed. You're catering to their needs, their requirements, and you are supporting them in those difficult moments that they might be having inside the room. They know that they can come to you when they need you. You've then supported their well-being within the setting that they're in. We also need to understand that we play a very important role when it comes to supporting children through their transitions and maybe some significant life events that they've had. There might be a new baby in the family, there might be a bereavement that the child needs to be able to manage. Having those close partnerships with the parent and understanding the child will support you through those transitions and those significant events. With those interactions, you're actually supporting their well-being again. Now, I want to just flip the information the other side, and I want you to then focus on, again, step back into your room from last week. Were there any children you were worried about, you were concerned about? You thought, okay, just things don't seem right just there, what's going on? There are signs that might indicate the requirement for a little bit of extra well-being support. So where you're doing the regular support, the regular attachments, the regular interactions, there might be times where you need to step in a little bit deeper and understand any extra requirements that a child might be hoping for. And now I've actually gone onto the site for UNICEF, and what they've done is they've listed a few behaviors that might kind of be highlighted during your day with the children. If you find that the children become more clingy than usual, they're regressing to former younger behaviors, they're not sleeping well, they're coming in tired, children seem to be more irritable, a bit more hyper, a bit more afraid of things, they tend to be more demanding and are crying frequently. And as older children, they might show it in a little bit more aggressive behavior, concentration might not be there, they might stop playing, they might start behaving as though they're adults, not talking, be anxious and worried. These are signs, if you see in a pattern or often, you might think, things don't seem to be right there. What do I need to do? Those are times, I mean, the one-off being tired might just had a late night, not sleeping well in the morning. They might be crying because maybe they've got toothache, they're not feeling the best. But if these traits have been prolonged over a certain period of time and you are concerned about them, there might be something that you might have to step in a little bit deeper and understand where those behaviors are coming from. What is our responsibility when it comes to the children in our care? We do have a duty of care. And if we feel like a child doesn't seem like themselves, they seem like they're becoming upset more often, they're crying, and all those traits that I've mentioned in the previous slide, then what we need to do is we need to step in a little bit further. Your duty of care is to interact with the parent and maybe interact with the professional on site. In the UK, we have DSLs, which are designated safeguard leads. I'm not sure what it is like in your side of the world, but there must be someone, a manager, a senior teacher, a DSL, who you might be able to approach, say, look, there's certain traits I'm seeing here and I'm a bit worried about what might be going on. And that's when we step into another section of well-being, and that's our duty of care. I would love to come back again and talk about that in a little more detail, but it's a very, very deep discussion. And that's something that I do want to pass on to you, that when things are just not right, we do need to step out of that comfort zone and actually say, you know what, I need to figure out what's going on. And more or less, it will be a conversation with the parent, and you get to understand why those behaviors are being shown in the child's interactions in their classrooms. I think coming back and just going over what we've spoken about today, we've spoken about how important our roles are as practitioners, how we can support the social and emotional well-being of the children in our care, what signs to look out for, what role we need to play, and how important attachments are, relationships are, and how important trust is when it comes to supporting children's well-being. We also have looked at signs to look out for where we think things might not be going as in the direction that we would like them to have gone in. So we keep that at the forefront of our interactions with the children and their parents. But I do want you to step back for a second and just remember that we do play a very, very important role in the children's lives. And our role doesn't stop just with drop off and pick up time. It actually goes beyond that. So we do have a duty of care that we need to be looking at. So I just want to take this opportunity to say well done, because we're all doing an amazing job when it comes to supporting those children in our care. I hope you've taken something back with you today, something that you weren't aware of, or something that you'd like to reflect on, or maybe a child that's just popped into your head while you were talking to me and saying, you know what, maybe I need to step into that next zone and see what might actually be going on. So do take that information, do some further research on the theories that I've mentioned earlier. There are many more out there that you can look at, read upon, that will support you with creating the best environment for your child in your setting. I just want to say thank you. It's been amazing sharing this information with you all. I hope you can use this as a reference. I know that this was being recorded live for ECDF on Facebook, and it probably will be available for you to use within your settings. Please do go ahead and share this information. I do think a lot of early years practitioners would benefit from understanding how to support the children in their care. So I do want to say thank you for joining me today. I hope you're going back to something new, and see you next time. Thank you so much. Thanks, and have a lovely weekend. Bye.